I'm Krista Williams from Cobby MC in Marietta, Georgia. Welcome to Along Those Lines.
Support for this podcast comes from NRECA Broadband, a specialized service offering that helps electric co-ops succeed in the broadband business. We're leveling the playing field in Washington and positioning co-ops as a crucial force in rural broadband.
Hi, everyone. This is a podcast about electric cooperatives, the work they do, and the challenges they face. I'm your host, Scott Hoffman. The restarting of a decommissioned nuclear power plant is an unprecedented achievement in the United States, where cost, permitting, and safety concerns have marginalized the industry since the early 1980s. But a groundswell of new support for nuclear energy, driven by increasing demand for power combined with an ongoing rush to close or curtail fossil fuel generation, has put the mothballed Palisades nuclear station in southwest Michigan on an ambitious path to be repowered by late 2025. The 800-megawatt plant located on the banks of Lake Michigan was shut down in May of 2022 after nearly 50 years of service. But new clean energy funding and other support from the state of Michigan and the U.S. Department of Energy convinced Holtec International, the plant's owner, to pursue recommissioning of the facility. The linchpin in this historic project was finding a buyer for the power the Palisades would generate. And that came in late 2023 when Wolverine Power Cooperative and later Hoosier Energy signed long-term power purchase agreements with Holtec. Here to talk about how co-ops became involved in the Palisades project and how this type of co-op vision, creativity, and leadership is beginning to garner widespread attention. We have Eric Baker, the CEO of Wolverine Power Cooperative, and Donna Walker, CEO of Hoosier Energy. Donna, Eric, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us, Scott.
Thanks for having us.
Eric, why don't we start with you? Take us back to the beginning of Wolverine's involvement in the Palisades project. When were the first serious discussions you had about restarting the plant, and what precipitated those?
Well, right at the end of February of 2023, our team had a reach out from Senator Sabanow's office about what our intentions were with New Era and whether we were interested in applying for the grant. And at that time, we were considering a couple of minor solar projects, and they suggested that we should think much bigger than that. And that led to a rapid and surprising opportunity and how quickly it developed and led to this great story. So from the February Wolverine board meeting until our first introduction that we made to Holtec less than 30 days later, that was the entire wind-up to the Palisades opportunity.
Okay. So Holtec had already been sort of making it known that they were going to try and restart this, but at that point, they had not secured any agreement with you. It was that getting the Secretary of Energy involved that precipitated. Okay.
That's correct. The early leaders in this project were Holtec, Governor Whitmer in Michigan, and Secretary of Energy. Jennifer Granholm recognized the importance of this to Michigan and to the nation. And that process started about 6 months prior to Wolverine introducing itself to Holtec. And at that time, Holtec did not know that cooperatives existed.
So, Donna, for your part, tell us a little bit about how you got involved. Was it sort of simultaneously with when Wolverine got involved or slightly staggered from that?
Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite stories about Eric. So we were at the NRECA Power Exchange in Nashville in early March of 2023. And literally, I'm in the hallway and Eric walks up to me and I kid him about this. I said, Eric, I don't even think you said hello. You just said, hey, is there anything in your board policy that would prevent you from participating in nuclear? And I'm like, no. And he said, well, I've got this crazy idea. I don't know if anything will come of it, but here's what I'm thinking about. Do you have any interest in that? And I said, yeah, we'd have interest in following along. So, the first time I hear it, I think, oh, that's a really cool long shot that I didn't expect to actually go anywhere just because of the nature of it. But I said, yeah, I'll have my staff reach out to yours and we can start talking. We'll get the agreements in place to start talking and sharing information. And so we just kind of joined at that point. And yeah, so I think we were on board pretty early.
Yeah, that's amazing. I had not heard that story. That's great. See, lots of big deals getting done there at a Power Exchange.
That's right. Got to be in that hallway.
So, Eric, you've been following, I'm sure, the progress that Holtec has been making. They have a lot of refurbishing to do to get the plant back up to speed. Do they have an expected restart date? Is it on track at this point?
Yes, they do have an expected restart date of late fourth quarter 2025, and it is on schedule at this point. There are about 42 key major milestones that have to be accomplished to satisfy the startup requirements and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And in that 42, that constitutes about 1,000 major maintenance steps. The key in all of this is that there is an existing nuclear operating license. It's effectively suspended. So this is not an initial relicensing effort, which tends to be much more complicated. And so what's complicated is there's just a lot of work to do at the plant. And because they want to restart it and operate it for another 30 years, they're also trying to add on some very major maintenance that they would do for a life extension cycle.
And are you both getting regular briefings from them? Are you on the phone with the hotel folks with them, giving you updates on where we are and how they are in the Nuclear Regulatory Commission process, as well as their refurbishments?
Yes, great question. Part of our negotiation included the concept of an operating agreement. And so Donna's team and my team have senior technical people that participate in at least monthly meetings with Holtec that go through major deep dives for several hours on the status of every one of these key issues.
Neither of your G&Ts has had nuclear in your portfolio in a long time, right? So do you have any nuclear expertise on your staff? Have you had to staff up? Have you had to get folks on board with this new technology and what it means and what you need to know to add it to your mix?
What we did is reached out to an independent firm that does nuclear consulting. They did some work for Oglethorpe. And so that was our connection to that. And we had gotten good reviews about this company. And so we retained them. And then they went out and hired additional expertise that was very familiar. It had worked at this power plant for decades and a seasoned nuclear plant engineer that had been in the business for over 40 years. And so that consulting firm produced a detailed economic and mechanical feasibility report for Hoosier and Wolverine's board's consideration.
Yeah, and we've never had nuclear as part of our portfolio in our history. It's always been one of those things that our board has thought, oh, that'd be nice to have, but there just weren't the opportunities out there. So we're super excited about it, but this is our first experience with it.
Talk a little bit about the risk involved with this. I assume you've had lots of experts looking at long-term risk associated with being in this industry and being a major partner with a nuclear plant. How did you satisfy your board on that? What kind of conversations did you both have with your board and your internal teams?
Donna, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, for sure. For a little bit of perspective, I might just offer up just how quickly our board made this decision and Eric's board made this decision. So if we kind of build on where we were from that first conversation that Eric and I had in March of 2023, and then we look at it, our board unanimously approved participating in the Palisades project via PPA 6 months later. So essentially from not even on our radar screen to we're all in, we're participating. I just wanted to kind of speak to how quickly I think co-op boards and how nimble they can be with this. And so obviously we had a lot of discussion in that short window of time and even a more compressed time within that about what the risks are. And, one of the things we were looking at, because we had gone through a long-range planning process and over the course of 2019 and had decided to step away from our last coal asset just because it represented half of our total mix. And that was a huge concentration risk for us. So we're really trying to diversify. So we had made that decision and we were looking at, all right, that's about half of our total supply portfolio. And we had a plan for what we were going to do to replace it. Obviously, nuclear wasn't on the radar screen, but here it came. And so our view of risk was, what are the other alternatives to replace that generation that we're stepping away from and build that diversity? And we looked at the new build construction risk, supply chain risk, interconnection queue risk, as far as a new generation coming online. We looked at all of that and we said, wow, even though this is a first in the world to restart a nuclear power plant, that seems like a lower risk outlook for us. Also because it's a hedge for whatever happens with carbon regulations in the future. And so that was the position we were in and we were looking at it. We said, hey, to restart something that's already there and has a great history of performance, a very safe track record, it seems like lower risk to us.
Wow, that's great. That's really interesting input because nuclear has not been seen as a safe bet for a long, long time.
Because this plant was constructed, it was a high-performing asset prior to its decommissioning. It had a lot of things going for it, but this technical risk assessment was an important document for us because Hoosier nor Wolverine had the internal expertise that we felt comfortable could investigate all of that. So we went through probably 35 major criteria evaluating the impact of a particular risk and then the likelihood of that particular risk. So sort of a detailed matrix assessment. So from our perspective, we had three key risks we were trying to manage. One is the technical risk. We've addressed that. The second is the contractual risk. And we have a lot of experience there. And we share an external legal firm with Evershed Sutherland and Herbert Short's firm that has done lots of work in the G&T community. And so developing a detailed, definitive purchase power agreement around this asset is something that we're very experienced at. And we have, between Donna's team, our teams internally, and then our external team, we were able to compile a really strong document in that roughly 4.5 months. And then the last one that was important to Wolverine is the size concentration risk. These are lumpy things. They generate so much energy, and this would effectively been putting all eggs in one basket for Wolverine. And we were hurt badly by making a similar decision almost 50 years ago in our organization. We did not want to repeat that. And so reaching out to the G&T community to share in this opportunity, but also to share in the size risk was an important part of our strategy.
So one of the things that Holtec has in their plans for restarting this facility is some small modular reactors. And I believe the contract you've signed has the option to extend into the capacity of those. Did that play into your strategy for signing this agreement? And what do you see as sort of the future of that particular technology?
From my perspective, it was a secondary issue. Our primary issue was the plant itself and the viability of the restart and the strength of the contract, the strength of the partnership with Hoosier, just sort of meat and potatoes sorts of things. As we went on and we realized what their intentions were with small modular reactors, we thought that we were bringing them significant value, and we asked for consideration within the context of the power purchase agreement that we would have preferential rights, and Hoosier and Wolverine share those on a pro rata basis to our ownership for anything that may get done in the future around small modular reactors.
Yeah. So we were super excited about it. I agree with Eric. It was secondary, but super excited about the potential and the fact that not only are co-ops part of the first restart in, I used to say U.S. history, but Kelly Trice from Holtec corrects me and says that's world history. So I put that in there now. So co-ops are part of that. And I think being able to be part of being on the front of SMRs is exciting for us too.
Yeah, I'm personally very excited. I think it'll be great to see what they're able to do. I mean, that is a technology with a lot of promise. Let's pause here for a word from our sponsor, and when we come back, we'll talk about how the new Trump administration might impact federal funding and support for the Palisades project.
This podcast is supported by NRECA Broadband, a specialized service offering that helps electric co-ops succeed in the broadband business. NRECA Broadband has regulatory and legislative staff dedicated to representing co-ops' broadband interests through direct advocacy. The program also offers robust education and networking opportunities, as well as resources to help participants navigate this complex industry. Visit cooperative.com/broadband to learn how together we can help shape the future of rural connectivity.
I'm Clarice Kessler from the North Dakota Association of Rural Electric Cooperatives in Mandan, North Dakota. You're listening to Along Those Lines.
Welcome back. So as we look ahead in the very near future, we have a new administration, the Trump administration, coming in. Is there anything about transitioning from the current administration to a Trump administration that is either positive, negative, or gives you pause? Can you give a little commentary on what you see either changing or getting better as you go?
It's a little bit early to know exactly what the new administration's desires may be. But I think what we've heard from the new administration as well as the current one is that there's support for nuclear. And I think if we're looking at a future, a lower carbon future, and we're really serious as a nation about resource adequacy and having reliable electricity supply, nuclear has to be a part of that picture. And so I think nuclear is a good long-term strategy as far as our portfolio. So yeah, there can be differing views and flavors on that, but I don't see anything that says, oh, if we had known this, maybe we would have made a different decision. Everything I see since we made the decision around Palisades tells me that was the right thing to do.
I would add to that, you've got a few other things that are happening in Michigan. That Michigan itself is committed $300 million to the restart of this project, and that received broad bipartisan support within the state. Wolverine has received broad bipartisan support through the Michigan delegation in Washington from the representatives. And so I don't see that changing because of the essential nature that nuclear brings to Michigan electric security and reliability, even to the region reliability, but now to national security interests. And the last one that is more recently emerging within the last 6 months is the essential nature of nuclear as it pertains to AI and data centers. It's really the only way for us to have a chance of keeping up with that rapidly increasing demand. And a recent report from the Department of Energy on nuclear suggests the need for close to 80 small modular reactors in the next 10 to 15 years. So we anticipate continued support of this effort.
I assume you've both been having conversations with the leadership of your member cooperatives about this project. How have they received it? Have you gone down to the level of actually talking to their members at all about this? Is there a conduit of information down to the member?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to Donna's earlier comment about speed. So just some simple dates. The end of February, we had this crazy idea. We start talking to Donna and to Holtec. We don't meet Holtec until the end of February. And by the end of April, we had a binding letter of intent with 6 months of exclusivity to achieve a definitive agreement. 4.5 months later, we have a partner in Hoosier, and we have a definitive agreement. And so that had to move really quickly. And so reach out to members along the way was highly complicated and quite urgent. And so we had a number of visits with our member boards individually. We had a lot of communication at the Wolverine board, several special board meetings. And then we invited any chairman of a distribution member that was not on the Wolverine board to participate in every deliberation, every meeting, every strategic planning session, special board meeting, just to try to foster commitment. We had a number of conversations with each member CEO. So that was a lot of coordination, but in the cooperative family, it's essential communication. And so I think we have extraordinarily strong support for this idea.
Yeah, here at Hoosier, kind of building on that, I think following up on our original conversation, I had a conversation then that following June at an event where Herbert Short with Eversheds was at. And he was kind of like, things are moving. He said, I thought this was a long shot, but things are moving. And it's like, oh, all right. So what you're telling me, Herbert, is we need to move too. And so we met with Aries' team in person, kind of ironed out a few things, went and looked at the plant, got to meet Kelly Trice, the president of Holtec Decommissioning at the time. And so got that all taken care of. And then I had a board retreat coming up in August. And I said, well, if I'm going to take this to my board, Eric, I need you to come, and Kelly, I need you to come. And Eric brought Gary Bendel, his board chair, and they came to our board retreat. And so our board meetings include our director from each of our 18 members, plus their CEO. And so just in a room with this group for a couple hours, they heard from Kelly, they heard from Eric, they heard from me, and really got a sense of what was going on. And so that was kind of putting the parties that you're going to be doing a long-term deal with on the stage and letting them see who the people really are made a total difference. And our board really felt comfortable. And so then I go out and meet with our member system local boards at the beginning of the year. And so we were having some conversation around that after we had made the decision and the announcement was public. And then at our annual meeting, where we have all of our local member system boards come, Eric and Kelly were kind enough to come back, and we did a panel discussion for all of them. So again, they could see who we were heading down this path with. And that's been really great. There's a lot of comfort and confidence in the folks that we're working with on this transaction. You just can't replace that. You just can't replace that with anything else.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it all came together so quickly. So talk a little bit about the importance of this project for not only the U.S., but for the world right now. This project has a microscope on it across the world. In the rapid deliberations you were making, did you have a sense of the global importance of this? And can you sort of articulate how that lands with you in terms of how historic this is?
As a career utility planner in Michigan for my entire career, I knew immediately the importance of this for Michigan, but no, I did not understand the global significance of that. And that came out at our very first meeting with Holtec. And it really emboldened me when I initiated meetings with my senior team. Literally on my Uber ride back to the airport following the meeting, we were putting things into action. And it was clear in that meeting, this was far more than just a single power plant. This, as important as that is and as big as that is, and the $1 billion+ to restart, and what this means to Michigan economy, electric security and reliability, the implications to SMR, the being able to show the world a model. If you want to restart a nuclear plant, there is a path to do that. And the implications that might have in Western Europe and protecting against other hostile players that may use energy to create international leverage. I didn't realize that it went to that level.
Yeah, same here. And I'm not sure that you ever can really appreciate that, right? I mean, it's kind of like you're in it and then you realize, oh, this is big. I knew it was big, but it's a lot bigger than I knew it was going to be. But it's been tremendously exciting. It's been the most exciting thing I've worked on in my, what will be almost 30-year career now.
It's been really fun to watch, I have to say, especially with it being co-ops at the center of this. It's personal and it's important beyond just the deal. It is putting something out there that everyone can see how co-ops do business. I wonder if you can sort of talk to that. Why is it so important that it's electric cooperatives that are at the heart of this historic development?
I'll start and turn over to Donna. I think part of it from my standpoint is something that I'm proud of in our culture at Wolverine, which is I think cooperatives have a unique connection to their customers, to their members. And when there's trust with a board and there's experience of trying and sometimes failing, it creates an environment that's very rich for innovation to grow and to take root. And I think that's the case here. It's our past experiences and our cooperative nature that not only created an environment to move so quickly with Wolverine, but it was something that really resonated with Holtec and its principal founder, Dr. Singh. And he really liked that we were nonprofit and that we were in multiple markets and we could be that interface, which was not their expertise. And that would have been a great story. But then to be able to partner with another G&T and to see our teams come together and the strength that they bring this, to Donna's point, this is an incredibly rewarding effort to be a part of.
I'm so appreciative that Eric brought opportunity to us because, that's not something sitting here in Indiana that we were watching, right? And so without Wolverine, this never would have been a possibility for Indiana. And I've always been appreciative that, Eric has said, yeah, it was too big for us. So we wouldn't have been able to do it without somebody coming in beside us. And I think that is the heart of what co-ops are here to do. And one of the other things that I really appreciate is that, and allowed us to move so quickly, is that my team coming in a little bit behind Eric's, we didn't try to second guess what Wolverine was doing. We said, hey, get us up to speed on where you're at. We're happy to let you be the face of it. We're going to be here in the background to support, to talk, to vet. Let's expand our teams and expand our breadth and go after this as opposed to duplicating effort. So something as efficient as using the same legal firm. So we didn't have different attorneys with different views. Getting our boards together. I kid Eric, I think the only thing that we disagree on is who has the better team, me or Eric? I don't think we're ever going to agree on that. But they're all wonderful, talented people. And I am just so excited to see that happen with co-ops because we know it's out there every place in co-op communities, right? So yeah, it's been great.
I cannot think of two better spokespeople for not only this project, but the ability of co-ops to get this done and to explain it to their members and to do it in a way that makes sense not only to the cooperative model, but the entire world. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you both for coming on. Good luck with everything going forward. I know that this is not a done deal yet and there's a lot left to do, but thanks so much for coming on and talking to us.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thank you. My pleasure.
And thanks to you, our listeners, and to our sponsor, NRECA Broadband. For more on this and other podcasts, visit us on electric.coop. Until next time, for Along Those Lines, I'm Scott Hoffman.
I'm Tori Moss from North Arkansas Electric Cooperative in Salem, Arkansas. Thanks for listening to Along Those Lines. Subscribe and rate us on your favorite podcast app.